Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. We're here to preview a college football playoff game for the Miami Hurricanes. It's awesome to say that. I can't believe we're here in some ways, but it's a testament to the work that Mario Cristobal has done with getting the program to this point. And it's just really cool to talk about these type of games. Before we dive into our preview here of the game, I want to highlight our two sponsors, of course. Canes Connection, uh, transfer portal season is basically here. The portal doesn't open until January 2nd, but guys are definitely tossing their names out there that intend to enter the portal already as we record this now, and that's only going to continue here up until January when things are officially official. So, as we know, investing in a football program never stops. The programs that fail to invest get killed in the portal in terms of defections and can't retain, etc. Programs that continue to invest have success. And I think Canes Connection does an excellent job of allocating their resources, and Miami's football minds in general do a good job of allocating their funds so that they get a good return on investment, as we see this year with Miami in the college football playoffs. So go support those guys any way you can at canesconnection.com. Also, our guy Nick Musarino at Musarino Law. If you've been injured in any type of accident, slip and fall, boating, trucking, Uber, Lyft, any type of car accident, Nick Musarino is the personal injury attorney you should contact at 561-960-9870 or visit his website at flinjury.law. All right, Gabby, we're here to preview this game. Number 10 Miami against number 7 Texas A&M. This game, of course, is going to be at Kyle Field. It's a noon kick on Saturday with the game televised on ESPN or ABC. Um, first game of the day with the NFL having games on in the late afternoon and evening. College football is trying to own that noon window, which I think honestly is good for Miami that this game isn't a night game in Kyle Field. So it's still going to be a raucous environment, but it's a noon kick, 11 a.m. local time. So it's a morning start for the Texas crowd. We'll just kind of run through who Texas A&M is in general, Gabby, and then we'll bring you in and start talking about the personnel. But first, we want to talk about injuries, right? So both teams have been off for a couple weeks, and so it's worth noting the guys that were out at the end of the year, whether or not they'll be able to get back on the field. From the Miami side of things, Keontae Scott is kind of the main guy to watch at nickel. He, of course, missed the last 3 or 4 games of the year. And, Mario Cristobal basically, I don't know, he was kind of wishy-washy when he was asked about it at his press conference. Questionable. I would say it's questionable whether or not Keontae goes. I do think it's close. It's just a matter of, is he going to, even if he does play, how much
Right.
is he going to play? I think is a fair question,
Yeah.
right? So he's one to watch. Obviously, it'd be great to play if he can play no matter what. Um, and then on the Texas A&M side, LeVeon Moss suffered an ankle injury against Florida. There seems to be optimism that he could go, but I think similar types of questions of like how much will he be able to go? When he really starts testing that ankle, will he be able to finish off the game? But Le'Veon Moss is definitely their best running back. And so if they can get him as a full go, that does provide their offense some boost. And then another guy, Scooby Williams, their linebacker, got injured. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup all season. He is practicing lately, and I think he's another guy that's kind of like questionable. I will say, like, I don't know exactly when these reports are released, Gabby, but I think college football playoff rules require every team to provide an injury report. So, maybe those will be more illuminating as they get released later in the week. all-time series between these two teams. Miami leads the all-time series 3-2. Miami won the last matchup between these two teams back in 2023 at Hard Rock Stadium. That was a 48-33 victory for the Hurricanes. Texas A&M won the last game in College Station back in 2022, 17-9. Texas A&M this season, who are they from a big picture profile perspective? They went 11-1 on the season. They won their first 11 games, lost the regular season finale against Texas 27-17. Best win is on the road at Notre Dame, 41-40, 40 game. Um, they have four one-score games over four one-score wins over Notre Dame, Auburn, Arkansas, and South Carolina. They've played three Power Four level teams that are going to go bowling this year in Notre Dame, Missouri, and Texas. They went 2-1 in those games. Their head coach is Mike Elko. He's in his second year at Texas A&M. Has amassed a 19-6 record with the Aggies. He previously was the head coach at Duke for 2 years, and he has amassed a 35-15 overall record as a head coach. He does have a win over Mario Cristobal. Back in 2022, he took down Miami 45-21 at Hard Rock Stadium when he was at Duke. His background is on defense. He's regarded as one of the better defensive minds in college football. He's served as defensive coordinator at Wake Forest, Notre Dame, and also Texas A&M under Jimbo before he then went to Duke to be a head coach, and now he's back at Texas A&M as a head coach. From like a Miami perspective, I would, it's not exactly the same, but I would say their defensive approach is kind of like very similar in a lot of ways to what Manny Diaz did when he was at Miami. He's obsessed with generating negative plays. And then on third and long situations, he mixes up blitzes and coverage packages, etc. But he's very creative and he's good, particularly on third down. Their offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, former Kansas State quarterback who ripped out Miami's heart a couple times. And
Oof, sure did.
when I have nightmares at night, I'll look under my bed expecting to see Colin Klein. He has now taken the position to be the head coach at Kansas State, but he is going to be the play caller for Texas A&M, in this college football playoff run, whatever that means for Texas A&M. He runs a diverse offense for a dual threat quarterback. Schemes are varied, different ball carriers in the run game, different RPO looks. He'll take some shots downfield as well. I think in general, his offense does a nice job of constantly putting a lot of defenders in the back seven in flux, whether that's, again, with RPO, with quick game, with deep shots, with working it to all parts of the field again. And he likes having a dual threat quarterback. Defensive coordinators, Jay Bateman. He's also moving on after this year. He was hired to join Will Stein's staff at Kentucky. He was also the defensive coordinator at North Carolina under Mac Brown from 2019 to 2021. He then went on to UF on Billy Napier's staff. He was a linebackers coach there, I believe. And he's now on this Mike Elko staff. He basically runs, it's Mike Elko's defense, and he's the defensive coordinator. Texas A&M stat profile. They're averaging 36 points per game on offense. That's 14th in the country. 454 yards per game. That's 20th. 6.5 yards per play. That's 20th. So 261 passing yards per game. That's 32nd. One sack allowed per game. That's 11th. 12 interceptions thrown. That's 102nd. They've generated 68 gains of at least 20 yards. They are 40.9% on third down, which is average. That ranks 58th. They are 65% red zone touchdown rate. That is 43rd. Just in general, their passing game success rate is better than their run game. And also, they are more explosive through the air compared to their run game as well. Defensively, they're allowing 21 points per game. That's 41st in the country, 309 yards per game. That's 19th. 5 yards per play. That's 33rd. 182 yards, passing yards per game. That's 21st. They lead the country in sacks per game. They are second in the country in tackles for loss per game. They've only forced 9 turnovers on the year. That's 118th. They've only picked off 3 passes on the year. That's 128th. They've allowed 54 plays that have gone for at least 20 yards on the year. That's 79th in the country. They have the number one third down defense in the country. They allow only 22% conversion rate from the opponent, and their red zone touchdown rate is 59%. That is 65th. So, their stat profile kind of shows that they are, at least statistically, they are an elite pass defense. Their run defense is good. Their run defense will allow some explosive plays, though. I think if you, and we'll get into this as the podcast progresses, Gabby. But I think if you really look under the hood at their defense, it's fair to question, okay, how elite is this pass defense?
Right.
Are they elite or are they pretty good and they have played opponents that allow them to maybe look better than they are? We'll discuss that later on. Special teams, Casey Concepcion is averaging 20 yards per punt return on 23 attempts. He's also had 2 touchdowns on punt return
Elite.
opportunities. Very good playmaker. Their kicker, Randy Bond, is very inconsistent. He's 11 of 18 on field goal attempts. Their punter, Tyler White, pretty average. He's averaging 44 yards per punt. All right, Gabby, let's turn the page now and talk about their players. Texas A&M's personnel. And let's start with their quarterback, talented dual threat Marcel Reed. He's one of the key pieces that makes them go, right? What do you notice about him when you turn on the Texas A&M tape?
He's a really impressive athlete. The way that he's able to extend plays, just generate offense with his arm and his legs. He can evade pressure. He gets himself out of some tricky situations when, we'll talk about their offensive line in a bit, but when that offensive line does, let's say, make a mistake or someone beats them, he's able to kind of bail himself out because of the way that he can kind of move the pocket, and he kind of keeps his eyes downfield, and he does a good job of delivering some balls, and even some tight situations where pressure's kind of closing in on him, he's able to deliver the ball downfield, find his open guy. And again, then what he does with his legs, when he kind of tucks it and runs, he's sudden. He has great vision for a quarterback. Knows how to kind of find the hole and go. He could be a problem as a dual threat. Just with the way that he kind of just is able to make a snap decision and how he could just go, or again, he can kind of keep it and beat you with his arm. Then as a pure passer, I think there's still some sort of inconsistencies. 10 interceptions on the season. I think that there were opportunities for more. I think there were, opportunities where just puts the balls in some troublesome situations, can force it at times. So I think from a Miami perspective, I think it's really important. And when they have actually done a pretty good job of this just throughout the year, is trying to make Marcel Reed more one-dimensional and kind of force him to be a drop back passer, David. I'm curious how they decide to kind of approach him. I think this is one of those games maybe you just kind of drop into a zone, let your front four eat, and kind of force him to process and read the field and see how it goes and just kind of spy him. So I think that's probably the best approach in general, from not a coach, just from what I can see, just because, again, I think that's where I think Miami can make Marcel Reed struggle, is if you force him to have to make really good decisions and make really good throws as a passer. But very, very talented dual threat quarterback that will definitely press them.
Yeah, from like a statistical profile, if you filtered out amongst Power Four quarterbacks, the guys that have thrown for at least 2,900 yards, thrown 25 touchdowns, and run for at least 450 yards, there's 2 quarterbacks in the country that have done that check all those boxes. It's Marcel Reed and Diego Pavia. So
Oof.
he's one of the more productive dual threat quarterbacks. Miami, like you said, Miami's done pretty well against dual threat quarterbacks. To me, like when I watch him, I agree with everything you said. One thing I'll add too, when you watch Texas A&M play, number one, he's very streaky, I feel, hot and cold. When he gets hot, look out. He's very dangerous, but he can also have accuracy issues with missing layups.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing that stands out, he doesn't back down. Like, honestly, they probably shouldn't have won that Notre Dame game, but Marcel Reed just kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. I think that South Carolina game kind of similar. They were
Hmm.
down what, 30-3?
Three, yeah, and he did not look good in the first half of that game.
Terrible. And that lead and all the momentum that South Carolina kind of had was erased in the third quarter because Marcel Reed got going and was ultra explosive through
Yep.
the air in that game. So he's a guy that, look, if you get Texas A&M down big, he's a guy that you can't take your foot off the gas, you know, with trying to defend him because he could change the scoreboard in the blink of an eye and get Texas A&M's momentum back going in a positive direction. I want to ask you this: who do you think is because Miami's faced a bunch of dual threats, whether it's, just off the top of my head, right? Like Tommy Castellanos,
Hmm.
Byron Brown. I would say, I mean, DJ Lagway is more of a passer, but if you want to
Right.
put him there, I don't know. Kyron Drones,
Yeah.
Kevin
Kevin
Jennings,
Jennings. Yeah.
different styles. If you were going to say Marcel Reed is most similar to one of these guys, who would you point, who would you say? And or
Yeah.
maybe he's like a little bit of this guy, a little bit of that guy, etc. Who do you think he most resembles?
Dang. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll
I
tell you
think
this.
I think
I
with the
see
go ahead.
like Kevin Jennings
Yeah.
extending plays.
Right.
Like as a passer, there's
And the hot
similarities
like
there.
the I think like just the like when the arm gets going, I feel like the Kevin Jennings thing definitely kind of pops off. But like they are similar. I think Marcel Reed is more of like a twitchier runner,
He is. He's a
which
better
like I feel like
runner.
gives me like maybe like I feel like runner wise, I feel like it can be like sort of Tom, yeah,
Castellanos,
Castellano-y kind of.
right. But he can't pass like Tommy.
Right.
Or sorry, he passes it better than
Better
Tommy.
than Tommy.
And then
He's probably not as truly sudden as Castellanos is, but I feel like it's more of like that
it's
mold as
close
a
though.
runner.
Yeah. Um, and then yeah, he's not as good of a passer as Kevin Jennings, but he does when he extends plays, he does look to pass,
Yeah.
kind of similar to like Jennings does as well. So he's kind of like a mix of that. Like he's not to me, he's not very similar to like Byron Brown
No, or drones.
or Drones. Um, so yeah, he is. They faced a lot of dual threat quarterbacks, but like none of
He's
them.
unique.
Yeah, he is unique. All right, how about his weapons? Where do you want to go here? I think there's plenty of guys to go into with
Yeah.
his pass catchers. Where do you want to start?
I think you got to start this conversation with Casey Concepcion. I mean, he's just he's such an elite playmaker. He's a NC State transfer who was very, very productive as a freshman for the Wolfpack. Took a little bit of a step back as a sophomore, but had a huge bounce back year after transferring to Texas A&M. Leads the team with 57 catches, 886 yards, 9 touchdowns, averages 15 and a half yards per catch along to go along with his punt returning and the explosiveness that he brings on that side. But just as a pure pass catcher, Casey Concepcion to me is just I mean he's just so sudden. He is so I don't know, the body control, his ability to kind of go up, make plays, and then just the yards after catch is just so impressive. He's not the biggest guy at all, but he finds a way to kind of fight through contact, make people miss, and go. So he can be extremely explosive. He's someone that when he catches it, you got to get your arms on him, or you got to get your body on him. You got to bring him down because he has wiggle. He can go, he can make you miss, and then he can go hit a home run. And he can do it in the short game. He can do it in the intermediate, and he can do it in the deep passing game. He's an awesome, awesome football player. And so I think the conversation with Texas A&M's offense outside of Marcel Reed, I think you got to go straight to Casey Concepcion.
Yeah, to me, he's the guy who's the most scary, um, in terms of like outside of Marcel Reed. He's the guy with the real juice. Like Mario Craver has similar stats, but Casey for the totality of the season, Casey has definitely been their best player. And, we talked about how he makes plays in the punt return phase as well. I would not punt it to him. I would definitely try and punt away from him. Um, but yeah, in that comeback win against South Carolina, he had 7 catches for 158. He played a big role in that victory. Um, but yeah, let's go on to Mario Craver as well. Another receiver with some juice, works primarily out of the slot, but as the season has progressed, his production has dipped a little bit.
Yeah, he was really, really good for them early on in the season. I think he kind of hit a wall in SEC play. And so but he was extremely productive. If you go back and watch that Notre Dame game, I mean, he
Yeah.
made a huge play where it seemed like Notre Dame kind of had him dead to rights, but again, you kind of just you try to thud these guys. You think you can just kind of get them down easily because they're small. Like he's got the contact balance and the strength to kind of fight through some of that stuff and then just go. Like you saw what Mario Craver could be in that Notre Dame game because and just the explosiveness that he kind of has too. So both those guys have been hits for Texas A&M in the transfer portal. Mario Craver came over from Mississippi State and has been again highly productive for him. Not again, I don't think as consistent as Casey Concepcion, but the numbers are really strong. Another guy averaging over 15 yards per catch, nearly 16 yards per catch for them. So, again, another yards after catch, explosive type of dude that I think Miami has to kind of circle.
Yeah, I'm curious if this time off for him, between regular season ending and this game, I wonder if it's helped him kind of get some juice back because it seemed like he was a little bit worn down as the season progressed. He's kind of a slighter build, and the SEC production kind of shows that he's averaging 48 yards per game in the SEC, and he hasn't scored a passing touchdown in SEC play either. But to your point, like he had a 207-yard on 7 catch performance against Notre Dame, and really was the reason why they kind of won that game. He
Yep.
took that game over, so he has that potential, and he's definitely a guy that you got to be aware of. I'll say this too. One guy that gets my attention with their receiving core is Bethel Roman,
Yep.
Ashton Bethel Roman. He's a guy that has like all three of these guys have a ton of speed, and he's the guy you kind of forget about. But when you forget about him, he generates an explosive on you. He's averaging 23 yards per catch,
Yep.
and he has 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And to me, he's dangerous too.
Yeah, he's come on strong at the back end of the season too. You know what he did in that. He played a huge role in that South Carolina comeback. Talk about one of those Marcel Reed plays that he made. I mean, just delivered an awesome ball to Bethel Roman in the back of the end zone there, and he had a touchdown in the South Carolina game, had a touchdown against Missouri, two against Samford, and was a little quiet against Texas, but someone that's definitely kind of coming alive for them. And even just like another guy like Terry Bussey, who was like a former 5 star, like they got a ton of talent. And it's interesting, David, because Bethel Roman's like the biggest one, and he's 6 foot,
Yeah,
185
he's slight.
pounds.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small but explosive receiver room. So we know Miami has some like big, more physical corners. I'm curious how that matchup kind of goes.
And then their tight ends to me are kind of sneaky. Like
Yep,
they're not
solid group.
they're not bad, but they're not like, a huge part of their offense. But when you forget about them, they'll score a touchdown, they'll convert a first down. They have two guys, Theo Malin Ostrom and Nate Burkirker. Um, both about 165 yards on the year, and they've totaled 4 touchdowns between them. So they're guys that you got to be aware of as well. How
Yep.
about their running game, running backs?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they get Le'Veon Moss back. He was kind of their guy early on in the season. I believe in that Florida game, he got banged up and he didn't play again for the rest of the regular season. So it seems like he's someone that they're on the verge of getting back. I mean, he's been a contributor for them for just for quite some time. I mean, this is his fourth year with the program. He has over 1,700 career rushing yards, 22 touchdowns. And so he's a veteran, experienced guy for them. And he's a big, big addition to their offense if they're able to get him back. But they also got a couple, kind of high profile guys. Reuben Owens was a five-star player when he was coming out of Texas, out of the state of Texas, went to Texas A&M, had a ton of, opportunities, and he's done a good job, kind of just taking over just in relief of Le'Veon Moss. I think he leads the team with, what do we got here? Leads the team with 618 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. So he's a super, super talented guy. They got EJ Smith, who's the son of the legendary Emmitt Smith, and then Miami native Amari Daniels, who somehow is still in college because he's
Yeah.
been around for a long, long time. I think they got four quality backs back there that you have to account for.
Tell us about the O-line because I think this is viewed as one of the better
Yeah.
offensive lines in the country.
Yeah, it's a big offensive line. They're a big, big unit. Miami's this is a line of scrimmage team, much like Miami is, and this offensive line is the real deal. Trey Zunn is their star left tackle, has been one of the best left tackles in the country. I mean, Pro Football Focus credits him with a 96.9 pass blocking grade. He's only allowed one sack on the season, only 8 quarterback pressures. And they got Chase Bisontis, who was a former top 100 talent out of New Jersey, who I believe is in his third year with the program. Mark Nabu is their center. He's another veteran guy. Armaj Reed Adams is their right guard. He does a really good job with them, a former Kansas transfer. And then Demetrius Crownover is a big right tackle, a former tight end who they converted to be an offensive lineman that does a really good job for them. All these guys have a ton of career snaps under their belt, much like Miami's veteran offensive line. This is an extremely big and experienced offensive line that does a really good job of protecting Marcel Reed. And this is going to be a significant challenge for Miami's defensive line because this is an SEC big time group that has performed at a high level.
Let's flip it over to defense, and I think you got to start with SEC Defensive Player of the Year,
Yep.
Cassius Howell, who's their pass rusher for Texas A&M and has some serious juice.
Yeah, Cassius Howell was the first team All-American SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Like you got to be doing something right to earn those accolades. 40 pressures on the year. I think 14 and a half tackles for loss. Yeah, just an absolute baller. A transfer who started his career at Bowling Green, so kind of a gem that they found in the transfer portal before the 2024 season, who's really emerged here in 2025 for them. So Cassius Howell is, a huge problem, just because of his. I mean, he's really the complete package. Like he's an awesome pass rusher, but he can also play the run really, really well. I think he's someone that is, I think he's going to be a problem to kind of deal with. But again, Miami's offensive line is big and experienced too. Miami has some dudes, and I think we're going to see some fun Francis Mawanoa versus Cassius Howell reps. Same with Markel Bell, but he's going to test both those guys.
Yeah, I agree. He's big time. And he's sneaky good when he drops back into coverage too.
Yeah, he's a good athlete.
He's got 6 passes defended,
Yeah,
I think, this year.
yeah.
So you got to keep an eye on wherever he is. How about their interior guys? Who stands out to you there?
Yeah, they got a couple big boys. DJ Hicks, a former five-star that Miami heavily recruited out of, the state of Texas, stayed home to play for the Aggies, and he's a big boy for them on the interior. Albert Regis is another massive body type, 6'1", 315. He's been there for a bit, right, David? He's someone
Hmm.
that played against Miami during these last matchups, so he's someone that's seen Miami before. I think DJ Hicks was on that 2023 team too, so a couple of those guys that were there. They got a couple others. Iowa State transfer Tyler
Onyedim.
Onyedim. Onyedim.
He's
So
good.
he does a good job for them as a rotational guy also, or I know he starts and they move around all these guys. TJ Searcy gets a lot of burn for them too. He's a Florida transfer, so they got a pretty solid rotation of defensive linemen. But to me, David, Cassius Howell,
Yeah.
is the biggest problem, and then those interior defensive linemen. I think DJ Hicks is a super impressive player when he plays at his best. You see that five-star talent flash for sure. So they got some dudes up front.
Hicks was very good against Notre Dame. And I remember Onyeda making some plays against South Carolina in their comeback against them. So, I would say to me, like their D tackles are kind of, and I mean this as a compliment, they're kind of like similar level to Miami's D tackles, like good
Yeah.
D tackles that can flash and make plays in a given game. How about at the linebacker level?
Yeah, Torian York is kind of their guy. I mean, he's not the biggest dude, listed 5'10", 220 pounds, but he's a super experienced linebacker for them. He's totaled almost 2,000 career snaps. He's their leading tackler. So Torian York is kind of like their Mike, their kind of do it all type of dude. So I mean, he's definitely one that you got to account for. Damian Sanford has kind of stepped into as a regular guy. You got Scooby Williams, a Florida transfer, who is I guess working his way back from an injury. So he's someone that they might reinsert into this defensive front that can give them a little bit more. But those are like those are Damian Sanford, Torian York, and Scooby Williams are the three to know. But I think uh, you know. I think they're good kind of downhill linebackers, but I think that there are some question marks there.
And how about their secondary? What stands out about them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple guys in Will Lee and Des Ricks who are talented and can kind of play man coverage. They put those guys. I feel like they allow those guys to kind of play freely on the outside. Those guys are Des Ricks is another former five-star signed with Alabama, transferred over to Texas A&M, and he's done a good job for them. Will Lee is I believe, a Kansas State transfer too,
Yes.
so a couple transfers for them on the back end. I mean, between those guys, they've allowed 6 touchdowns on the year, also have 10 pass breakups, no interceptions between those guys. And then you got Tyreek Chappelle, who kind of plays that nickel slot corner spot for them, who does a good job, but also doesn't have an interception on the season. So not the most playmaking unit. I think they're pretty gettable, David. I think they can also be pretty handsy in some of these man on man coverage situations where I think they could be over kind of aggressive and definitely beatable on the
Yeah.
outside vertically. So I think that is an area that Miami will need to kind of test Texas A&M and see if they're ready for what Miami's kind of has the potential to bring.
It seems like teams, when you watch Texas A&M, teams attack Will Lee
Yeah.
in particular in coverage. I think he's allowed 500 plus receiving yards on the year, which is like the second most amongst SEC corners. And then Des Ricks, the thing you notice about him is tackling, that
Yeah.
he's
I think with
not
both of them.
fair. Yeah. Des Ricks in particular, though,
Yeah.
is not looking to be physical. I also think tackling's kind of an issue for their safety,
Yep.
Dalton Brooks. Their nickel, Tyreek Chappelle, he's been there forever. Like
Yeah.
he's played 2,500 snaps. He's a guy that he's instinctual, he's smart, but he's not the most athletic guy. And I think you can attack him in some ways with Malachi Tony. The last time Miami played Texas A&M, Chappelle was on the field, played a big role in that game, and Miami attacked him in the red zone, and he allowed 3 touchdown receptions while in coverage in that single game. So Shannon Dawson went at Tyreek Chappelle in 2023. I'm curious if he does it again
Yep.
this week as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll take a break there. And then on the other side, we'll get into talking points, what we want to see, etc., from the Miami side of things for this game. All right, Gabby, we're back. Where do you want to go with this? Do you want to bring up a talking point you want to discuss? What do you want to see from Miami in this game?
Yeah, I think it starts with Marcel Reed, right? Like to me, a big part of Miami finding success in this game is kind of just containing that dual threat ability of Marcel Reed. Again, they've had opportunities against dual threat quarterbacks, and it seems like they've kind of passed all of those tests. As we talked about, David, I think that this is a unique challenge, just what Marcel Reed brings. I think a big part of what Miami needs to do, just one of the keys to this game, is kind of trying to make Marcel Reed one-dimensional, keeping him contained in the pocket, find ways to kind of heat him up, right? Like I think finding ways to kind of force him to make a throw or feel like he has to kind of get rid of the ball and make him have to be, super accurate. We talked about the streaky nature. He's also pretty turnover prone as far as just like the ten interceptions. And I think in some of the games that have been closer, the games that have been tight, he's been especially turnover prone in some of those games. And I think he can also force throws at times and just feel like the like he's kind of going with the ball where he's going with it. I think you saw that a couple times in the Texas game. I think in the South Carolina game, it's in that first half. He made a couple throws that were just pretty questionable. Not all of them were picked off, a couple of them were. And so I think that there are ways if you force Marcel Reed to kind of have to process the field and make a throw, um, I think that that's a way to kind of just win that matchup because if he starts getting loose and starts extending stuff, it makes it pretty difficult.
I agree. I think Texas, in a lot of ways, provided a blueprint
Yeah, for
on
sure.
how to handle this Texas A&M team on both sides of the ball. But as it relates to Reed, yes, I agree. Like to me, like yes, Reed is a unique dual threat relative to who Miami's already faced as a dual threat quarterback this year. But what makes it tricky as well is his supporting cast is better than what Miami has faced
Yeah,
from a dual threat quarterback this season as well. So if I am Corey Heatherman, I watched that Texas game and I'm like, man, that's the way to do it because and by that I mean like just mix up a bunch of zone coverage looks.
yep,
Why? Because zone coverage allows you to keep your eyes on Reed as a scrambler. I think, Reed knows man coverage. Obviously that means the defensive backs have their back to the quarterback, and that allows for easy scrambling opportunities, which he's more than willing to take. Like you go back and watch the LSU game, and look, LSU, rightfully so, is a little arrogant about their DBU. That self they
proclamation.
yeah, self-proclamation of DBU.
Yeah,
And so they played a lot of man coverage against Texas A&M, and Marcel Reed ripped them up for a beautiful, it was like a 41-yard scramble where he just cut it up the middle of the pocket and made some DBs miss with 5 yards to go and kind of stumbled into the end zone for a 41-yard scramble. And you just can't allow that to happen. So I think zone allows you to keep your eyes on him always as a scrambler. It also forces him to throw it into windows accurately, which I think he can be inconsistent with. And frankly, as well, Gabby, I don't really want Miami's corners to have to run with these Texas A&M
yeah,
receivers play after play after play after play, because I think if you put these corners in man coverage against these Texas A&M receivers, they're gonna get you because
yeah,
let's just call it how it is. Like, and look, I think you and I both agree like these corners are good, but there's also levels to this, and those Texas A&M receivers just have more juice in terms
yeah,
of just pure running ability, acceleration ability than Miami's corners. And so I don't want them on those islands. And so I would put the DBs into zone. One interesting stat too about Marcel Reed: when you don't blitz him, he's thrown for 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. So against just drop back, what is
yeah,
that? Seven guys back
yep,
there. He struggles to process. When he is blitzed, he's very good at either finding the hot route to throw against the blitz or extend the plays and then burn the blitz. He has a 14-1 touchdown to interception ratio when defenses do blitz him. So it's going to have to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game because look, Miami loves to blitz. They're top 10, top 15 in the country in blitz rate, and they love blitzing that nickel in particular. And so I think there's going to have to be a cat and mouse game in that regard of like show blitz, drop back, show blitz, blitz, um, with Marcel Reed. Now, with zone defense, it also requires discipline, right? Like you can't get caught napping or out of position. And honestly, like that most worries me as it relates to Motore, who's kind of committed the most busts, I feel like,
hmm
in coverage. Um, but I think in general, and look, everyone knows. Like I think if you're the Texas A&M side, like we're talking about this Texas game, right? Like, oh, this is the blueprint. I think the Texas A&M side would point to the Louisville game, right? And say, look what Chris Bell did to this Miami defense. Our receivers have juice like Chris Bell. And so if we work crossing routes, etc., that's going to have success against Miami. I think I think you want to go drop back into zones and make them throw crossing routes into windows rather than throw crossing routes against man coverage where eventually those fast receivers are just going to get open against
Yep.
the man because
Yep.
crossing routes is what they do. They are big into crossing routes, they're big into in cut routes. Um, and I just think you want those zone opportunities where when Marcel Reed throws a ball that's inaccurate, you have a guy there to pick it off. Um, so I agree. I mean, I am very curious because look, this in general isn't a zone type of coverage defense,
Team, right?
but I think it's the smart play to go out and just in general too, make Marcel Reed methodically work
Yeah,
the ball.
100%. Yeah, I feel
This
like it doesn't seem like a good like down to down off. Like I don't know. That's what I kind of took away. I feel like they also like they can struggle like as a down to down type of offense. I feel like they're kind of those explosive plays are what kind of help get them,
yes.
downfield. So I feel like that's from that perspective, it's a smart play in that regard too.
One thing I want to touch on, and this can be quick and this is somewhat obvious, but like I think Texas also showed somewhat of a blueprint for making life difficult on Cassius Howell, their excellent pass rusher. And what they did was, pretty obvious. They made life difficult with Cassius Howell via alignments and via kind of throwing bodies that way, like wherever Cassius Howell was we're going to send one or two tight ends on that side. And we're also going to put our running back lined up next to the quarterback on that side. And so if Cassius Howell has to go wider and if he has to go through a bunch of bodies, he's just not going to be as effective. And I think when you watch Texas A&M, like this is oversimplistic, but it is true. Like their defense is really based on Cassius
Yep.
Howell creating havoc.
Yep.
And if you can make him quiet, I think their secondary is gettable. You can go at their secondary. And so, you watch like LSU. Again, this LSU game was a bit of a disaster from an approach standpoint of like, what were you guys thinking? But like they started, I think he was a true freshman, left tackle in that game and Cassius Howe was just whipping him up, and Garrett Nussmeier had no chance in that game because he had no time to throw, and they wouldn't give the left tackle much help, etc. And so Cassius Howe went off. Um, Texas recognized, hey, this guy's the best pass rusher in the SEC this year. Let's take him out of the game. And look, I don't think Texas's offense was like super dynamic that day. They honestly had a lot of success running the ball
Right.
which I think was interesting. But they also frustrated Cassius Howe that day by putting a lot of tight ends over there. I think the pass protection of Mark Fletcher is going to be critical.
Yep.
Like to me, that's how I'm going to judge Mark Fletcher's performance on Saturday, not rushing yards. Like, okay, how did you do with giving Carson Beck more time in pass pro? So that's what I wanted to say about and in general, like you know, this is an excellent pass blocking group.
Right.
We know that it's the best in the country. And if they give Carson Beck time, honestly, it might be a long day for Texas
Yeah.
A&M.
I 1,000% agree. You and I feel like Texas is built very similar as far as just body type wise, right? Like I think Miami's offensive line is better than Texas's offensive line, but still, like you saw when they actually had to kind of go up against like a real kind of offensive line and just a real front. I think just in general, if it's not Cassius Howell, I think the rest of like the defensive line, got a lot of respect for those interior guys, but I think like
It's
just like the
solid,
pass
but it's
rushers,
nothing.
right? The pass rushers are not the type of guys that are going to give. I feel like it's kind of like TJ Searcy was at Florida. Like it's kind of like that style of just like kind of maybe more power rush
Long.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it's just I feel like that plays well into my what Miami has just in that situation. So if you could scheme out Cassius Howell and you force that back end to have to cover, again, I think those linebackers can be super suspect in coverage. I think the corners could be very suspect in coverage. I think the safeties are just okay too. And look, they might get Bryce Anderson back. Like we didn't really talk about that. Like, but he's been out and he's had a head injury for a
Yeah.
lot
Do
of the
we believe
season.
that? I
I
know
don't
that's
know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I guess he tried to play earlier in the season and then he had to kind of like come right back out. That might be a little bit too testy of a situation. But I think if you neutralize Cassius Howell, again, I think that this Miami offense is. I think there's a path to to your point, David. I think there's a path to a pretty successful day for Carson Beck and this passing operation. Because and I'll transition this just kind of
Let
into.
me ask you this
Yeah,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
So, in my opinion, the best pass rusher Miami's faced this year is Cleve Lubin
Yeah,
from
he was a
Louisville.
baller, right?
And he impacted the game against Miami. He had 5 pressures. Um, I don't know if he had a sack, but he definitely affected the quarterback. I think he's, I think, I think Cassius Howell is better than Cleve Lubin. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's just something to keep in mind. Like Cleve Lubin had a good. Now they definitely moved Cleve Lubin around that game, lined him up in different spots. But you know, the best pass rusher that Miami faced this year was Louisville's Cleve Lubin, and he certainly made an impact on the game.
Yeah.
All right, where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just going back to Miami's defense, just getting Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver on the ground. I mean, these are you look at guys and their yak on the season. Mario Craver is seventh in the country in yak, 523 yards after the catch. Casey Concepcion's 24th with 413 yards after the catch. So again, these guys are. I feel like that's kind of like the bread and butter of both of these guys is kind of is what they do after the ball's sort of in their hands. So I think it's important when they actually do make plays because they're gonna make plays like they're gonna have. You got to get these guys on the ground. You got to just be able to kind of limit those explosive turnarounds where it's again a crosser that's maybe an 8 yard gain that can turn into a 50 plus yard touchdown or whatever the case is. So I think a big role for this defense is just kind of keeping these guys in front of you and making sure they're not breaking tackles, not just little thump arm tackles, just like being really physical. Again, they're smaller in stature, but they can make plays, and I think they can really make you pay if you're soft with them or if
I
you're not.
think, in particular with Craver, I think you got to tackle him hard. When you
Yeah,
tackle him hard,
he'll bail out.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a strong way to put it, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's kind of the wrap on him. So,
yeah,
uh, I agree with you. Like tackling them in space is going to be critical. Going back to Louisville, that's obvious. Like Chris Bell had 2 explosive touchdowns because Miami couldn't either take correct angles or make the tackle, and they allowed him to get some significant yak touchdowns. Um, Sticking with what the def and this goes back to Marcel Reed. We've kind of touched on this idea, but like you just have to make him pay when he puts the ball in dangerous
yep,
situations. In those 1 score wins against Notre Dame and South Carolina, he threw a combined 9 turnover-worthy plays in those games. He threw only 3 interceptions in those games. That's honestly pretty lucky
yeah,
that it worked out like that for him.
yeah. There was a couple
Uh,
in the South Carolina game that were just like missed
yes,
opportunities by the defense. Like that game could have been that
both
game
those
could have been
games,
over. Yeah,
both those games. If one of those in each game, one more pick, it's probably game over for Texas A&M, which also, again, to my earlier point, speaks to how Marcel Reed's just next play mentality. Like he's not afraid to still attack after making those type of plays, but you have to make him pay when he does put the ball in danger. Um, Notre Dame and South Carolina did not make him pay, and they both lost their games by 1 point
Mhm.
against him because of that. Anywhere else you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think just big picture, just like handling the environment, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think, going on the road, uh, 11 a.m. start. So this is kind of like you got to wake up, you roll out of bed, and it's kind of roll the ball out there and go play, and then you got the Kyle Field aspect of 100 and something thousand people, first ever playoff game hosted in College Station, so people are going to be pretty amped up for it, and this is a team that on the road has at times struggled with like the pre-snap stuff. So those are situations that we saw hurt Miami in the past, is those kind of self-inflicted situations because of false starts or snap infractions or whatever the case may be. So I think just handling that. And look, this team's come a long way, and it hasn't really been an issue over the past few weeks or, the past few games of the season. So I think just kind of coming out and playing a clean brand of football and just kind of coming out swinging, right, and handling and neutralizing the crowd and just kind of getting into the flow of the game, settling in and just getting it to just playing ball and not being rattled or whatever the case is. And look, Miami's got a veteran team. I'm not super worried about the moment being too big or anything like that. I think it's just handling just like everything that kind of
Yeah.
comes around that and what's happened in the past when they've been on the road in some of these situations. So I think that that's a factor that needs to be at least accounted for.
This will be the toughest environment Miami's played in this year. The toughest up until this point is Florida State on the
Yep.
road, which was what, 60, 70,000.
Yep.
And look, that environment was a good environment at the
Yeah.
start of the game.
Yeah. For the
And
first 10 minutes, it was really nice.
yeah, and Miami,
Yeah.
put him to bed 28-3. So, that's one way to take a crowd out of the game. Um, but yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I think part of the reason why Texas A&M is so good on third down, I think it is I think the crowd deserves some of that credit because they make it tough for an offensive operation pre-snap on third and long
Yeah.
situations,
The third down situations are worth accounting for too.
which goes into the last point I want to make, and that's, I think if you want to boil this game down, there's lots of ways you could just boil it down simply, but I think you want to look at Miami's success rate on offense, which again is another way of saying like the down to down, staying ahead of the chains, staying in manageable situations. So like second and six, second and seven, third and four, third and five. Like you
Yep.
want to stay in that world versus Texas A&M's attack mentality defense. So Miami's, 16th in the country in success rate on offense. Texas A&M's fifth. Their defense is fifth in the country in success rate. When you look at the third down, right? That's going to be the critical down where both teams want to set themselves up on first and second down with manageable third down situations. The average third down distance for Miami this year, 6.35 yards. That's 13th in the country. The average third down distance for Texas A&M is 9.1 yards, which is an insane number to me.
Yeah.
That is
Is that their
first.
is that their offense or is that for their defense?
That's for their defense.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So basically every time they're on third down, it's third and nine is
Yeah, that's
another way of
wild.
saying that. And so yeah, of course you're gonna have
A
your
really
number
good third
one.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, that's elite stuff. Um, so look, obvious things to say here, right? Don't give their defense free yards that give them the advantage.
Hmm.
Penalties. That's to what you were saying earlier.
Right.
Penalties, right? Tackles for loss, which Miami's and Texas A&M's good at this too. Limiting those negative plays. Miami's one of the best in the country at limiting negative plays, tackles for loss, and sacks. Texas A&M's also very good at those statistics as well with their offensive line. Um, One thing I want to watch too, which I think Texas kind of showed this blueprint as well. Again, Texas A&M, they have an attack mentality, downhill, firing off the ball, linebackers coming downhill. We're going to get a tackle for loss. That's like the Manny Diaz style, right? So you remember covering Manny Diaz, Gabby, how like, yeah, there'd be some games where Miami's front seven racked up 11 tackles for
Yep.
loss, took them out of the game, etc. There would be other games where man, the running back was patient and they could find those creases because they were almost using that aggressiveness against the opponent.
Yeah.
And, those patient running backs that had the vision to find those creases could pop explosive plays against this style of defense. I'm curious if Miami can get that going a little bit in the run game. Um, because it's aggressive. This Texas A&M defense is aggressive, but it can also be at times aggressive to a fault. And so I'm curious if they can get some explode. And when I when I talk about this, I'm thinking primarily of Gerard Pringle because to
Yeah.
me, he's the guy with the best vision, the best patience, the best ability to explode through a crease that's there against an attacking downhill style of defense. So third down, I think you could say, okay, and this goes for both sides, both sides. Whoever has the better third and whatever yardage in the game advantage probably ends up winning the game. I think that's fair to say because these teams, we'll get into this later, but these teams are very identical in a lot of the key statistics you look at.
Yeah.
All right, how about a matchup you like the most going into this game?
Yeah, I like Miami's run defense against Texas A&M's run offense. Again, we'll see if Le'Veon Moss is available. But look, this Miami run defense is pretty elite, averaging what I think 86.8 yards per game, allowing 86.8 yards per game. Notre Dame's run offense, conversely, is rushing for 192.7 yards per game. That's 25th nationally. But look, this Miami run defense has, I think, just performed extremely well against kind of the running style that Texas A&M kind of moves forward. They got gashed by, an Isaac Brown type, right? They had their
Yeah,
one lapse against Virginia Tech that I think was pretty uncharacteristic, but otherwise. Jeremiah Love, who averages 114 yards per game, 33 yards. Jadarian Price, who averages 56 yards per game, 45 yards. Jaden Baugh, who averages 97.5 yards per game, 46 yards against Miami. Hollywood Smothers, who averages 85.4 yards per game, -2 rushing yards. And so, the Le'Veon Moss, who's kind of in a similar mold to all those guys, 5'11, 210. Ruben Owens is 5'11, 215. Again, I don't think that these guys are like gashers in the way that Isaac Brown, or slashers the way like Isaac Brown are, or the Overton kid was for Virginia Tech. I think that this particular running style plays very favorably into what Miami kind of does best. Like again, there's just SEC or whatever you want to call it. Like there's still not a lot of defenses as physical as Miami's, and at the end of the day, Texas A&M was not tested against some of the best defenses in the SEC. So
I think
I
too. And look, I don't know if you would agree with this. I think the run games, like Miami's run game is okay. I'm not,
right.
their run game's okay. I think Texas A&M's run game is pretty much the same as
It's really
Miami's.
it's nothing special to me.
The difference is the 38 rushing yards per game that Marcel Reed brings to the
Hmm.
equation as a scrambler, right?
Right.
So whatever you said they're averaging what, 190.
197.
So subtract 30 yards per game,
Yeah, and they're about what Miami's at.
right? So I think that's a fair point you're making.
Yeah.
Um, matchup we like the most. I'm gonna say honestly, like I like Carson Beck against this pass defense
Yeah.
operation.
Hmm.
So like, you got to handle Cassius Howe. If you handle Cassius Howe though as a pass rusher, I like what Carson Beck can do against this type of pass defense. How about a matchup to keep an eye on?
Yeah, to me, it's Marcel Reed and just like the ability to extend plays and what that means when he does, and again, just the explosive aspect of Casey Concepcion, potentially Mario Craver. And so I think, Miami's done a good job of pressuring the quarterback and getting after the quarterback. I think just like finishing on him too is big because even opportunities like you watch in these games, like there are opportunities that this offensive line will allow a pressure. Like Marcel Reed will kind of get people on top of him, but he finds a way to move around it or just kind of just gets rid of the ball, whatever the case is. So I think finishing on him and kind of shaking him up. But I think doing that is obviously a tall task, and I think just that aspect of Marcel Reed's game concerns me.
I'll say Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver's speed and suddenness.
Hmm.
Um, look, again, like I'm not like, of course you got to mix in some man coverage looks, but if early in the game it looks like Miami's just playing a lot of man coverage against Texas A&M, I'm going to be watching a game like this from the press box with my hands over my
Yeah.
eyes and just worried that, the crossing route is coming or the deep shot is coming. Um, so that's one thing that concerns me. But I think if you play them the right way, okay, I'm not quite as concerned. The other thing too, and we've touched on this, is just the Kyle Field crowd and what that means for the pre-snap operation.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, this plays a big role into how Texas A&M is so effective on third down defensively. So don't feed into that. How about a player that needs to step up or play yours?
Yeah, for me, I think the running back room as a whole, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, David, this Texas A&M running defense in all these games that have been tight, these running backs have kind of gotten loose. That Notre Dame game, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love averaged 162. Oh, they totaled 162 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Arkansas, that game was super close, came down to the end. Arkansas ran for 268 yards with 8.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. South Carolina wasn't like super explosive, but I feel like they did a good. They got some sort of running game going, especially early in that first half, and
Yeah.
that game was tight.
Jackson Arnold
And yeah,
got loose as a
yeah.
as a runner.
Yeah, Texas, they hadn't
Yep.
produced a 100-yard rusher all season. Trey Wisner has like 155 yards. Texas finishes that game with 218 rushing yards, 6.2 yards per rush, and 2 touchdowns. So, Mark Fletcher, whether that be as a pass protector, I think that's a huge part of it too. But also this Miami running game,
Yep.
the games that Texas A&M has struggled or that have been tight, the running backs they have struggled against the running game, or the running backs of the other team have been effective. So I think that this is a really big game. It doesn't have to fall on the running backs, but Miami needs to be able to run the ball efficiently and effectively on this Texas A&M defense to just control the game, and then just continue to put them in favorable third down situations like we talked about. Miami wants to run the ball; they desire to run the ball. So I think being effective in that regard on Saturday is going to be a huge key.
Yeah, I'm going to go with two obvious guys, but I think guys that Miami needs them to step up and just make plays on their own without the help of blitzing, etc.
Hmm.
I'm going to go Ruben Bain and Nakeem Mesidor,
Yep.
the tandem. I
Yep.
think if they can impact the game without having to send up a ton of pressures, I'm going to like Miami's chances quite a bit. Now, this is going to be a big time matchup. So Trey Zune, the left tackle for Texas A&M, Demetrius Crownover, they're NFL draft picks. They're left and right tackles. They're big, nasty offensive linemen. It's very similar to what Bain and Mesidor play against in practice
Yep.
every day, right? So this is going to be a big time. I mean, Texas A&M, look, Miami's defensive end tandem is the best in the country. I think if you want to say best pass rushing tandem in the country, maybe you give that to Texas Tech. But when you're talking about overall pass rushing and run defending, Miami has the best defensive end tandem in the country in Bain and Mesidor, and they need to make their imprint on this game for Miami to have a
Definitely.
chance to go win the game. How about potential player of the game? Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going Carson Beck, and I think
That's why
that
you
he
brought him in.
exactly. This has got to be a Carson Beck game. This is one of those games where I feel like just in these playoffs and in these you get into these postseason games, having a veteran quarterback who is kind of ready for the moment. Again, I think everything's just kind of started to click for Beck in this offense in the back half of this year. And this is one of those games where it's just like you got to put it on your quarterback. Like your quarterback needs to put you in a position to win this game. I think Carson Beck has been awesome down this stretch. He's been effective. He's been surgical as a passer
Yeah.
with the accuracy. Again, I don't think these environments are too big for him. He's played in these settings and in these
Yep.
situations. So I think that this is a really, really good day for Miami to have Carson Beck as a quarterback. I think he has a chance to be the most impactful player on the field Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Malachi Tony.
Hmm.
We talked about how I like the matchup in general against Tyreek Chappelle, the nickel for Texas A&M. But also in general, like Shannon Dawson's had 2 weeks to design things up for Malachi Tony. Malachi Tony's had 2 weeks to also rest up and recover after 21 touches against Pittsburgh. And so I think the creativity is going to be there with how he's used and deployed. I also wouldn't be surprised if, there's some wrinkles in terms of like using him as a decoy and like,
Yeah,
okay, we know Texas A&M's really gonna be hyper focused on stopping Malachi Tony. Let's use that to our advantage.
right.
I will say, like Texas A&M, they are good at blowing up those wide receiver screens. Like they're good at that. So, I'm kind of more envisioning Malachi Tony having success in a traditional route running way of, short routes, intermediate routes against Tyreek Chappelle. So but I do think he's going to be a potential player of the game. He's going to have some opportunities where he's the Mally cat, throwing the
Alley
ball,
cat.
etc. So get the ball in his hands and good things happen. I think that's, on the table against Texas.
Are you over under 0.5 touchdown passes for Malachi Tony on
Oof.
Saturday?
Touchdown passes is hard. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
no,
say I'm gonna say under, but I bet he has some completions. I mean,
yeah.
touchdown passes is just hard,
All
especially
right,
now everyone knows it,
right. How about
like
over under 29.5 passing yards?
oof. I'll say under.
Let's
I'll
see,
say
man. I'm
under.
curious. I'm just throwing these at you, so unfair.
They're definitely going to use him in that way though, as
Yeah,
they should. So
100%.
it'll be fun. All right,
100%.
betting lines and predictions. Texas A&M, according to FanDuel, 3.5 point favorite, which tells you essentially a toss-up game.
Yep.
A&M gets the 3.5 points because they are the home team in that environment, especially 3.5 points. But essentially a pick 'em game in a neutral field. The over/under 49.5 points. So somewhat of a low scoring affair is expected. Um, Gabby, I'll give you the floor first. Where do you want to go with making this prediction?
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting matchup. Miami hasn't allowed more than 24 points in regulation this season. SMU scored 26. Of course, that was in overtime. Texas A&M has scored more than 24 points in 10 of its 12 games. So I think it's kind of just like a strength on strength, and whose strength is gonna kind of come out on top here? I think Miami's defense has to kind of be the trend, the tone setters as far as just limiting the explosiveness potential of this Texas A&M offense. Again, I think Miami's offense is built to be just efficient and effective. And I honestly, David, I don't know if this is just super homer of me, and maybe it is. I just think that this is a really good matchup for Miami, honestly. Like, people talk about like Texas A&M, and I heard a national voice say that Miami or Texas A&M is more tested than Miami. Like, I'm not sure
I'd
if
push
that's
back on
true.
that.
Yeah, like I don't know if I believe that. I think you look at the SEC and you assume all these things. Texas A&M did not have to play
Should we
any
go
of the
through it?
tops. Yeah, let's go through it. Let's go through
Okay,
it.
so I'm thinking of it on the similar lines, right? So here's who Texas A&M beat in SEC play. And this is SEC games. Arkansas, who went 0-8. South Carolina, who went 1-7. Mississippi State, who went 1-7. Auburn, who went 1-7. Florida, who went 2-6. So these are the five worst SEC
Bottom
teams.
five SEC teams.
They then beat LSU,
Who's like the seventh worst.
who is 3-5.
Right.
Their best SEC win is against 4-4 Missouri,
hmm
and then they lost to 6-2 Texas. So go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just like this is a Texas A&M team, and look, no one can control the schedule that they played, and look, credit to them for beating a good Notre Dame team
And I'll say
early on
this,
the season.
navigating those body types
Yeah,
and
for
the
sure.
talent
Yeah,
deserves credit. Like we're not sitting here saying like the SEC's trash,
of
but
course.
like their schedule did not feature good SEC teams,
You
is
did
what we're
not have
saying.
to play Alabama. You did not have to play Georgia. You did not have to play
Ole
Oklahoma.
Miss,
You didn't have to play Ole Miss. Who else did they not have to? Oh, I think they were
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. So as far as SEC draws go, I mean, got a pretty good one. So, and look, again, credit to them, but I think also too what we kind of saw here at the back end of Texas Tech season is they kind of started to hit a wall in that South Carolina game where they kind of got down. And again, credit to them for climbing their way out of that. But that was the back half of the season. They play an FCS team in Sanford, they beat them, and then they lose to Texas by 10. Like I feel like Texas A&M has quietly been kind of downtrending during the back end of the season. I think Miami's uptrending. This is a game where, look, I don't care. Like they played in the SEC. Miami has trenches like an SEC team, like a major SEC team. So I think that even to what they've seen, this is still a pretty unique matchup for Texas A&M, both from on the defensive line and the offensive line. I think operationally, this Miami team I think, is better than I think people give them credit for. I think especially in comparison to some of the teams that they played and that they beat. And so, look, I'm not saying I'm not trying to talk about Miami like they're like the best team in the world or anything like that. But I think in this specific game, in this specific matchup, I think that there are a lot of areas when I'm just kind of watching, these two teams play where I'm just like Miami can beat this team. Miami is,
Yeah,
I think Miami's probably honestly, I might say Miami's better than this team. Like I
I
honestly
think
think
they are.
Miami might be the better, just straight up the better team on the field on
Here's the
Saturday.
question. If Miami's playing their best and A&M's playing their best, who wins?
Miami's winning that game.
I agree.
I
And
think
look, to
Miami's
your
winning the
point
game.
too, right? And look, every game's its own entity.
Right.
Miami was more dominant against Notre Dame. Let's just say they handled
100%.
Notre Dame more
Yes.
impressively than A&M did, and
Yep.
they handled Florida more impressively than A&M did,
For sure.
correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And then look, and you also mix in this is going to be a game where every possession and every point matters. Their kicking operation and their special teams operation
It's
has been
bad.
pretty disastrous. They've
Yeah,
had 5 total blocked field goals or punts this season. And the field goal kicker from 40 plus is, I think worse
bad.
than a coin flip.
No
Yeah,
confidence.
yeah,
No
exactly.
confidence.
So, there are gonna be big moments in this game where someone's gonna have to make a play. I think, especially on the special team side. And look, Carter Davis hasn't been perfect, but he's been better than this kid. And I think he's made some. I think outside of the first kick of the season, which was like the bad snap, bad hold, or whatever, where just operationally it got jacked up. Miami's been pretty solid from a field goal kicking standpoint. So, look, I think that there are blemishes on this Texas A&M roster. I do not think that this is a perfect roster. I think they got a good draw. I think Texas, like you said, David, I think that was the best team that they had played since the Notre Dame game. And that Notre Dame game, again, could have gone either way.
That
I
was
think
fluky. Like one
Miami,
amusing thing to me during this whole college football playoff talk between Miami and Notre Dame was the Miami win over Notre Dame was fluky, and no one talked about how Texas A&M's win over Notre Dame was fluky
right,
when that was the fluky win, if we're
win of the
being
two.
honest.
Yeah,
Go
Miami
ahead.
was up. Yeah, Miami. I mean, Notre Dame had 7 points through 3 quarters against Miami. So, again, look, I honestly feel like I really think this is a game that Miami can win. Um, Spread is 3.5. I'm not saying Miami's blowing these guys out or anything like that, but I think that this could be a strong Miami win. I'm gonna go Miami 28. I don't know, Texas A&M 20. I think Miami can. I think that this could be a big statement moment for Miami advancing, and give me the Buckeyes on New Year's Eve, David. Give me the Buckeyes on New Year's Eve in Dallas. I got the Canes.
Yeah, to me, and look, I'm not pushing back on anything you said. I agree with everything you said. I do think both these teams are evenly matched. I think it's going to be a fun game. Styles, probably, in my opinion, I don't know. In my opinion, probably the two best line of scrimmage teams in the country when you're considering both sides of the ball. Two very good defenses. Each team has at least one dynamic playmaker at wide receiver. I think the quarterback styles are interesting too, the way they're different with Reed wants to extend plays. He can also scramble. Where Beck, one of the best in the country at getting the ball out quick. I think, Gabby, like turnovers are going to play a huge role in this game.
Yeah,
And I think that specific stat favors Miami because Marcel Reed gives you a ton of turnover opportunities. And so if you can make him pay on those situations, you have a big chance to kind of swing the game in your favor. Carson Beck, has a history of doing that. But this season at Miami, he's done a nice job of protecting the football outside of essentially the Louisville game.
Right.
And he had 4 picks. So that's in him. I'm recognizing that's also in him. But on the flip side of that, as it relates to Beck, this Texas A&M defense doesn't really make plays with
Right.
in the form of interceptions. They only have 3 picks on the year. So I feel like as long as Miami can block up Cassius Howe, Carson Beck's going to be able to efficiently distribute the football. On the other side, some of these splits for Texas A&M this season are interesting. Like when we went through who they played in the SEC. A lot of those teams just had trash offenses, really bad offenses. And so I do think some of the Texas A&M defensive stats are inflated because of that. Now it's a good defense. I'm not like saying it's not a good defense. It's a good defense. But like it's also in them to not play well.
Right.
Notre Dame, 40 points. Arkansas, 40 points. Uh,
South Carolina, 30 and a
right.
half.
South Carolina, not a right, 30 and a half. So, that potential is there. Like they will miss tackles. They will have some coverage busts, and that leads to explosive plays for the opponent.
Yep.
Um, so that's also in Texas A&M. Well, and you touch on the trajectory. Like I think Texas exposed a lot, uh, in terms of like how to make this Texas A&M team uncomfortable. Uh, Now, the flip side of that is this could be a good thing for Texas A&M because they got to see like, oh man, these are areas we need to clean up before we start playing in the postseason.
Right.
You look at Ohio State last year, right? They got that opportunity because they lost to Michigan in the final game of the year, cleaned stuff up, went on a run, right? But I don't know, like Texas A&M's issues can get cleaned up in 2 weeks. Like I don't know if a quarterback can all of a sudden get better with reading coverages and dissecting a zone defense in 2 weeks. Miami stumbled 6 weeks ago. They learned from that. They've changed some things with their approach, and they've been playing their best football now for the last month of the season. So, um, I think I just I think this game's going to be fun. So much fun. It has all the elements: hostile crowd, line of scrimmage monsters, elite skill players,
Yep.
good quarterbacks. I'm really looking forward to being at this one. Gabby will be there too. Um, but look, all this is to say, like before Miami's midseason stumble, many experts were saying like this Miami team is a top 3 team in the country. After the SMU game, people stopped paying attention to Miami, rightfully so, I guess. But Miami got better since that SMU game. And I think this Saturday, people will start recognizing Miami's probably still one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country again. And
Yep.
I got Miami 27, Texas A&M 23. So,
Boom.
I think it's going to be a great game though. And look, it's not going to be easy to go win on the road like this. This is one of the toughest environments you could ask for a college football, like
Yep.
first ever
100%.
college football playoff game at Kyle Field. That place is going to be insane.
Yep.
Um, but
Un
go ahead.
No, I was gonna another thing, David. Sorry, not to just keep
Yeah.
extending the show as we're trying. I know we're trying to wrap up, but like Mario Cristobal has just been excellent at getting his team up for games like this. Like I feel like these premier
Hmm.
non-conference games, like this is his kind of bread and butter. And
Hmm.
dating back to Oregon when they walk into Columbus, beat
Yep.
Ohio State on the road. And since obviously in that transition year they lost to Texas A&M, but they also lost to Middle Tennessee State. And since then they're 4-0 in premier non-conference games. They've gone to Florida and stomped the Gators. They beat Texas A&M here when that team was supposed to be, really good. They beat Florida again. They beat Notre Dame here. Like Miami's going to be prepared for this opportunity in this moment, and I feel like these are the games where Mario Cristobal is at his best. And look, Texas A&M's provided some bulletin board material too, so they seem confident. And
Yeah.
Miami's been very business as usual. So I think it's just a testament to the culture and just how locked in these guys are. Um, I hope we get to see a glimpse of Ruben Bain's notebook after this game.
It'll be interesting. Yes, I can't wait for this game. It's going to be a great game. Again, check out Inside the U. We'll have plenty of coverage leading up to the game. and also after the game. Appreciate everyone for listening. How cool is it that Miami Hurricanes are in the college football playoff? Until next time, take care.